Tori, Eller, and I play Heathcliff in the upcoming movie Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
Hey, I'm Jami, Hebert, and I played Catherine in Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
A very hard person. When he's younger, brought into this household, and Hindley and Catherine don't like him at first, and Hindley continues to make fun of him. You can see how he begins to start plotting against him, and when Hindley beats him, he doesn't react at all. And this hardness that he has, not showing emotion when someone is hurting him, turns into not really noticing emotions others have, and like being able to harm people without caring how they feel. This kind of shows in his relationship with Catherine as he gets older how very selfish and self-absorbed that he is.
So Catherine, from the time she was a young girl, she just has a really spontaneous nature. One little scene from the script of Wuthering Heights is when Catherine is talking to her father, Mr. Earnshaw, as a child, and Mr. Earnshaw says, "Why canst thou not always be a good lass, Cathy?" And she turned her face up to his and laughed and answered, "Why can't you always be a good man, father?" But as soon as she saw him vexed again, she kissed his hand and said she would sing him to sleep. And this just shows how she didn't really think before saying something or doing something, and then when she did it, she didn't think about the repercussions, and she would just do anything she could to make up for it. And as a kid and growing up with Mr. Earnshaw there to protect her and to fall back on, she didn't really think that it was necessary for her to really consider what could happen, and so she always had these male figures in her life there to protect her. First it was Mr. Earnshaw, then it was Hindley, and then she grew up and she was trying to find someone to marry, and she married Edgar, and so then she had Edgar and his money and status there to protect him.
When he finds out that she's going to marry Edgar, he leaves and actually makes something of himself, gets more money and actually makes himself more presentable, but instead of actually finding a new life for himself and going somewhere, he comes back to this place to take revenge on the people who have hurt him, and ends up almost going backwards. He got out of this place of hurt in his life, but he came back to try to hurt others and to make things, but thinks that he's making things better for himself. And he goes back to Catherine. One can see that as his unending love for her, but really his love for her is more of an addiction.
Oh, Catherine, my dear, there's someone at the door for you.
Well, who is it? Who could it be at this hour? Oh, my heavens! Oh, my dear Heathcliff! What are you doing here? Oh, my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. Oh, you must come in. Everybody's going to be wanting to see you.
I shall take a seat here.
Heathcliff, how long it has been, my dear?
Whatever. Okay. So when Catherine decides that she wants to marry Edgar, she can't turn back. She married him because she wanted his status and his riches, and because of her impulsivity, she can't ever have Heathcliff the way that she truly wanted him. And she finally has to face the consequences of her spontaneous actions, and she never had before. So she doesn't exactly know how to deal with that. And so now when Heathcliff returns after a couple of years, Catherine has to face the dilemma of being married to Edgar, but loving and being obsessed and addicted to a relationship with Heathcliff. Because Heathcliff's return sparked that inside of her again. And when Edgar tells Catherine that Heathcliff can't be around their house and around their family, she goes crazy and she doesn't know how to handle it, and she's only thinking about herself and how she can't have Heathcliff. And so that's that can be seen in one of the window scenes where she's sick and she can't take care of herself anymore because she's basically going through the withdrawals of an addiction, the addiction of a relationship with Heathcliff and that obsession. And so she runs to the window and she thinks that she sees her old room at Wuthering Heights because she's so obsessed with having this connection with Heathcliff that she is not allowed to have because Edgar won't allow it.
This quote, Stanton Peele, states that an addiction exists when a person's attachment to a sensation, an object, or another person is such as to lessen his appreciation of and ability to deal with other things in his environment or himself, so that he becomes increasingly dependent on that experience as his only source of gratification. So I would definitely define his attachment to Catherine as an addiction or an obsession more than a love, because he's really only using her to further himself and to make himself feel better. And even later on, as you can see in one of the scenes,
she's dead. Let her live in torment. She said that I killed her. Let her haunt me like the murdered haunts their murderer. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. Oh!
when she's dead, he still wants her to stay and haunt him because he can't live without her, and that's really selfish of him not to want her to be at peace.
The scene where Catherine gets bit by the dog.
We're off to see the Lintons, the rich and beautiful Lintons.
Who's there?
Hurry, hurry.
After that, she goes and she stays at the Linton's house for a couple months, and while she's there, she's exposed to their way of life and their riches and what she could have the opportunity to be, what could be hers. And so when she became well again and she returned home and she saw Heathcliff, she realized that she wanted more than what Heathcliff could give her.
Heathcliff! Oh, Heathcliff! Oh, there you are, Heathcliff. Oh, my! What grim expression you have. And what dirty face you have. And what strange appearance you have. I suppose it's because I'm so used to Edgar and Isabella. Well, come on now. Aren't you going to give me a hug? It's me, Catherine, of course. I will not be laughed at. I wonder why he's acting in such a way.
She liked Heathcliff, and she had a passion for him, and she loved him because of the validation that he gave her for being a woman, the love that he showed towards her, even though it was selfish love. She liked getting that attention, but it wasn't enough, and so what she was exposed to at the Linton's house made her want more, and she realized that she could have those riches, so Heathcliff really wasn't enough, and she saw Heathcliff as someone different, someone not good enough, and she because of her own selfish desires, she looked past what she loved in him before, just because she wanted more than that. She wanted money and something that Heathcliff would never be able to give.
Nellie, I must talk to you about something. You see, Edgar Linton, well, he has proposed, and before I tell you whether I said yes or no, you must tell me what you think I should have said.
Well, Catherine, considering the way you treated him this afternoon, the man must be a fool.
Well, I said yes as a matter of fact, so tell me whether I was right.
Well, do you love him?
Of course I love him. I mean, he's young and handsome and quite rich, might I add.
Darling, youth and looks never last, and riches could be gone in the blink of an eye.
Well, none of that matters because, you see, I'm only about the present.
Have you considered Heathcliff, darling?
Well, the way I see it is, I'll always have Heathcliff. And I am Heathcliff. And I do love Heathcliff. But to marry him would just be degrading.
Peel states that a love addict is a person who views and fears the world and people as threats to himself. When this person is confronted with demands or problems, he seeks support from an external source which, since he feels it is stronger than he is, he believes can protect him. Love addicts are individuals that have been trained at home as children to accept and exploit the victim role. So Catherine, when she's at home, she didn't have to face her in action. She could always, just play innocent. And one example of this, the scene where Catherine is talking to Heathcliff and telling him about her conversation with Isabella, it's because she fears that Isabella will take Heathcliff from her because she's so concerned with her own self and losing Heathcliff, and she's so selfish, and so she doesn't care about Isabella's feelings or Heathcliff's feelings. She just cares about keeping Heathcliff for herself.
Heathcliff, I just had the most ridiculous conversation with Isabella. I mean, the girl is actually smitten with you. What do you make of that?
Well, she is agreeable.
How could you say such a thing? She is not good for you. But, well, I suppose if you actually love her, I can maybe put something together so that you guys can get married. How would you like that? Okay.
He tries to use Heathcliff to steer Isabella away, but that backfired because Heathcliff obviously went along with it and used Isabella for his own selfish desires.
Peel states that addicts are emotionally detached from people and are capable of seeing others only as objects to be exploited. One place that you can see this is when Heathcliff decides to woo Isabella, and how he's doing this not to try to help her in any way. He's really only doing this to be able to get back at Catherine in a sense, and also secure the Grange as his own estate. you can see the after effects of Heathcliff's addiction, almost his withdrawals of not having Catherine with him after he dies, how he says that he wants her to haunt him. And in the beginning of the book, when Lockwood sees Catherine's ghost and he tells Heathcliff about it,
Goodness. Oh, my lord!
Johnny! Let me in!
Make me!
Please just let me in, I'm so cold!
No!
Oh, just let me in, please!
I'll cut your arm!
Heathcliff is sitting in there and he's crying, like, begging Catherine to come back. Like, he has lost part of himself, this thing that has made him feel good that he's been using, and he feels like he can't live without it because it's become such an obsession, and it's a really unhealthy relationship.
You can see that Catherine and Heathcliff, they're extremely alike, but because of their characters and their natures, and how selfish they are, and how they only do what's good for them and what they want, they're not compatible because they can never be the backbone for the other person. They can never be there to help them because they're only focused on themselves.
Ultimately, I think that Catherine and Heathcliff failed in their relationship was because they didn't have true love for each other. It wasn't a sacrificial, undying love. It was more of a selfish, jealous, gaining things for themselves love. Like, one point Heathcliff says, I cannot live without my life after Kathy dies. And Kathy even directly says, I am Heathcliff. They're not really in love with someone else, they're in love with themselves. And that kind of relationship can't last.